Welcome back to Cast West Radio. This is First Cast to First Fish, the beginner series built to help new anglers learn fly fishing in a way that feels simple, clear, and useful. In the last episode, we talked about beginner gear, what matters, what doesn't, and what you actually need to get started. Today, we're taking that next step. We're putting that new gear into practice. We're talking about how to set up that brand new fly rod you bought from start to finish. Because for a lot of beginners, this is where things start to feel a little messy. You got that rod, you got that reel, you got the line, leader, tippet, and flies. And now the question is, how does all this actually go together? That's what this episode is for. This is not about making you an expert in every line setup. The bros will call it a rig. This is just about helping you understand the basic system, what each piece does, how it all connects, because once this part clicks, the whole thing starts to feel a lot more manageable. So let's get into it. The first thing I want you to know is this. Your fly setup is not a bunch of random parts. It's one connected system. Each piece has a job, and each piece helps you move that energy from the cast and the bend of the rod into that kinetic energy all the way down to the fly. That's really the big picture. When you break it into, you have a rod, the reel, the fly line, the leader, the tippet, and the fly. Each one plays a role. The rod helps cast and control the line. The reel holds the line. The fly line carries the weight and energy of that cast. The leader helps transfer that energy smoothly. The tippet gives you a thinner end section that you tie the flies to. And the fly is what you're presenting to the fish as food. So instead of thinking of this like 6 separate things, think of it as like one chain. Each part connects to the next, and when it's rigged right, it all works together. So let's start with the rod itself. Most fly rods come in pieces, usually 4 sections. When you put the rod together, take your time. Line up the sections and join them firmly, but do not jam them together like you're trying to win something. Pro tip, put the butt and the second section together, then put the third section and the tip section together, and then put those 2 sections together. Just a solid, snug fit. And one little habit that is crucial, making sure that rod performs, is making sure the guides line straight up. The guides are the little loops that the line runs through. If those guides are off, your rod is not set up correctly. So as you put the rod together, just look down the blank and make sure everything is in line. Simple, nothing fancy. You're just building the rod correctly before the line ever goes through it. Okay, so we just got our rod out of the rod tube. We've got 4 sections here. Let's put our rod together. I like to separate the lower 2 sections and the upper 2 sections. I'm going to set these upper 2 sections to the side. We'll grab these lower 2 sections, and if you look on them, you'll see a little white dot. So those white dots are lining tools that some manufacturers put on their rods, not everyone. You'll take those, you'll just line them up, give it a little push. Now this lower section only has 2 guides on it, so there's nothing to line up quite yet. So I'm going to set this to the side. Pick up the upper 2 sections. So the upper section, I'm going to do the same thing. Find my dots. Slide those in. So I want to line those dots, give it a little push. Now for these upper 2, they have guides on them. So I'm going to take a look down the rod. All the guides are lined up perfectly. The last thing I'm going to do is take my rod, look down, make sure all my guides are lined up in a line. That's going to make this rod perform as it should. Next is the reel. The reel attaches to the bottom of the rod in the reel seat. Make sure you know which retrieve setup is on your reel. If you're a right-handed person, then it'll be a left-hand retrieve, so the reel handle goes on the left of the reel. Look for the notch cut into the reel seat to accept the reel foot. Slide the reel foot into place and tighten it down so it feels secure. You don't want it loose. If it has 2 tightening screws, use the first one to really make sure the reel is secure in the reel seat, and then use the second screw just to kind of lock it all in. Some only have one screw, but this is not a one-time and you never have to touch it again situation anyway. I check it every single time I pull it out of the rod box. You also do not need to go wild tighten it, just snug and solid. Once the reel is on, give it a quick check, make sure it feels seated correctly and is not wobbling around. That's it. Now you've got the rod assembled and the reel attached. Next, we need to put the reel onto the rod. I've taken away just this lower portion to make it easier for you to see, but at the bottom of the rod is a reel seat. In that reel seat is a notch that the manufacturer cuts out during the process. Then on your reel, you have a reel seat and reel post. And this is where you need to know, as we discussed in the podcast, about which hand retrieve your reel is. If you're a right-handed person, you're a left-hand retrieve, so your post is on the left. If you're a left-handed person, you're a right-hand retrieve, the post is on the right. But the reel is only set up for one of those. So you need to know which one is set up on the reel, and if it's not your retrieve, know how to flip the reel with the internal workings so that you make it the other retrieve. I'm a right-handed person. This is set up for a left-hand retrieve. Post is on the left. I'm going to take the reel post into the reel notch. I'm going to seat that side of the reel. I'm going to come down here, push that side up, and if you notice there's a little indentation there that'll accept that other post. Push it up onto the post. I just kind of hold it with my finger until I can screw that locking nut up to that. You just want to give it really nice snug fit. Don't have to torque it, just a nice snug fit. If your reel doesn't move, if it doesn't jitter, it's ready to go. Now it's time to pull line off the reel and thread it through the guides. This part is simple, but it's worth slowing down for. Start at the bottom of the rod, work your way up, running the line through each guide until you reach the tip. Pro tip, take the fly line, and that's the colored line that's on your reel, take out quite a bit. Make a small loop. Don't think about bending or kinking the line, just make a small loop and it'll pass through the guides much easier. Give yourself a lot of slack. Don't make it harder than it needs to be. One guide at a time, do not skip one, and yes, everybody skips one once in a while. That's normal. If the rod feels weird later, that's one of the first things I'm going to check. Now, once the line is through all the guides, you've got your main casting line running from reel through the rod, out the tip. That's your fly line. So now it's time to put the fly line all the way through to the tip of the rod. What I like to make sure is if you look on the bottom of most of your reels, there's going to be a little flat plate. You want to make sure that fly line is coming out in front of that plate, not over it. So this one's coming out in front of it. I'm going to pull off a large section of line. Just keep pulling. So now I'm going to take my fly line. I'm going to put a small loop in it. I don't want to kink this line, just a small loop. I'm going to find that first eye. I'm going to pass it up through that first eye. That loop just makes it a little bit easier for you. I'm going to pull the slack, recreate the loop, move to the second eye. And I'm going to do this all the way up the rod. I'm going to take my time, make sure I hit each eye and come out the rod tip. And from here, we move into what connects to the end of the fly line, which is called the leader. And at the end of your fly line, you'll usually have a connection point for the leader. The technical term you'll hear people use is a welded loop, and this is built at the factory. Most current leaders and fly line companies come with these loops. If that's what you have, this part's pretty easy. You connect the leader to the fly line with the loop-to-loop connection. Let me show you how that's done the easy way. Let's show how we connect our fly line to our leader using our loop-to-loop connection, or also known as the welded loop. This is our fly line. We're going to pass it through our leader, represented by this green line. We're going to run all the way to the thinnest part of the leader, Bring it back up to the fly line's welded loop. Pass that thinnest part through the welded loop. Slowly bring everything together. Pulling snugly. And there we have a loop-to-loop connection, and that's as easy as it gets. It creates a simple, clean connection, and if you're a beginner, this is a great setup because it keeps things easy, and easy is good. You do not need to make it harder than it has to be. Now, if your fly line leader setup is different, there are other ways to connect them, but for the beginner, loop-to-loop is common, clean, and very user-friendly. So now the system looks like this. Rod to reel, reel holds the fly line connects to the leader. That's the chain so far. Before we move on, let's pause for 1 second on the leader. That leader is the clear taper section into the fly line. Starts thicker, gets thinner towards the end. That taper is important. It helps that energy from your cast carry down smoothly so that those flies can turn over instead of just piling up in a mess. That's really its job. It helps bridge the gap between that thicker fly line, the weighted fly line, and the small flies. So even if the leader feels like it's just some clear piece of line, it is really doing real work. And the better you understand that, the more the whole system makes sense. Now let's talk about tippet. You can fish straight off the end of the leader sometimes, but a lot of times, especially once you're changing out flies, trying to find the right setup, you're going to be trimming that line back with your nippers. You'll want to add more tippet so that you don't have to change that entire leader every time. It gives you more working material at the end of the setup and helps just avoid chewing through that leader so fast. So if you picture the leader as the tapered part that comes off the fly line, and the tippet is the thinner extension on the end. This is the part you're usually tying flies to. For a beginner, the main thing is just understanding where it sits in the chain. It goes fly line to leader, leader to tippet, tippet to fly. That's the basic order. We'll get deeper into actual knots in another episode. For now, I just want the layout to feel clear in your head. At the very end of the setup is the fly. That's what you're tying on to the tippet, and this is where the whole system comes full circle. Everything behind the fly exists to help place that 1 or 2 fly offering where you want it. The rod helps you cast, the reel manages the line, the fly line carries the weight, the leader transfers the energy, the tippet gives you a fine connection, and the fly is what the fish sees and hopefully eats. That's the full picture. Fly fishing starts to feel a lot less random and becomes more logical when you understand the system. It becomes more like building something with a purpose. So let's make this real simple. Very common trout setup might look like this. A 9-foot 5-weight rod, a matching weighted reel, a weight forward floating line, tapered leader, connected to the end of the fly line is a section of tippet, a 1 or 2 fly system tied onto the tippet. That's it. That is a real setup. That's enough to go fishing with, and I think that matters to say because beginners sometimes think a real setup has to be something super technical. It doesn't. A clean, simple setup is a real setup. In fact, that's often the best kind to start with. Now let's talk about a few common mistakes beginners make when setting up their rod. The first is just getting rushed. You're excited, you want to go fish, and you skip right past getting that setup part right. That usually leads to problems. Little problems can turn into bigger problems. A guide gets skipped, the reel isn't seated right, the connection isn't checked on the line, the line gets tangled, the whole thing feels off before the first cast. So the first tip is simple: slow down. You don't need to rig like you're in a race to get to the river. Just learn the basic chain first, that's enough. I think learning to set up your own rod is one of the first big confidence moments in fly fishing. Because once you can do it, you're no longer just holding gear, waiting for someone to help you. You understand how the system works. You can build it yourself. You can fix small problems. You can start your day on the water without feeling totally dependent on someone. And that's a big step, because now the sport I care so much about is much more approachable for you. So if this stuff has felt confusing in the past, that's okay. It gets easier. And honestly, it gets easier pretty fast once you see the same setup a few times. If you remember nothing else from this episode, remember this order: rod, reel, fly line, leader, tippet, fly number 1, second fly. That's the chain, that's the system, that's the basic fly setup. And once you know that, you're already making progress. Because now when someone talks about rigging a rod, it's not just a bunch of random words. You actually know where each piece fits. So that's episode 3, how to set up a fly rod from start to finish. Not every knot, not every possible rig, just the basic system and how it all fits together. And for a beginner, that's exactly where you want to start. But in the next episode, we're going to cover the only knots you really need in the beginning. Just a few simple ones that will help you get rigged, stay fishing, and avoid unnecessary confusion. Thanks for listening and watching to Cast West Radio. This is First Cast.